Hi, I'm Ron and welcome to PopScicle, where I talk about popular culture, science, and everything in between. In case you're new to this channel, I'm Ron. I'm a biology professor and researcher, but I'm also a student of popular culture, whether it's movies, anime, TV series, music, RPGs, or what have you. But movies are one of my greatest passions, and that's one of the topics that I discuss the most in the context of it being combined with science, which is what I do in this YouTube channel, really. Combine my interests in science, particularly biology and popular culture. Now, one of the things that I've been doing for a long time, since 2001 actually, in my blog, which I just recently transferred to this YouTube channel, is Oscar predictions. I've been doing Oscar predictions for fun. It's something that I started doing when The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring came out in 2001. We all know what happened to the Oscar story of that film. But it's gotten me really interested in this whole game of prognosticating Oscar nominations and eventually Oscar winners. My last update for the most recent Academy Awards has been quite a long time ago, several months ago, and it's about time that I updated it, especially because the nominations are coming up in a few days. The official Oscar nominations for the Academy Awards are coming up on March 15 at 5:19 a.m. Pacific Time. In the Philippines, that's 5:19. That's around 8:19 p.m. And so I wanted to get my final predictions out there before the nominations are formally announced, and that's what this video is all about. Previously, I had released several videos to cover all of the categories in the Oscars, but this time I'm just going to produce this one video, and I'm going to show all of the major categories as slides, and then I'm just going to give details on the top 6 categories, which are the 4 acting categories, the directing category, and of course, Best Picture. Just a quick note, unlike Gold Derby, which is probably familiar to some of you, I don't list them in terms of the chances or likelihood of them winning. I arrange the names of the potential nominees in terms of likelihood of nomination. So the first name that you'll see on any of the lists is not what I think is likeliest to win. It's just what I think is likeliest to be nominated. And so having said that, let's now proceed with my predictions for the Academy Award nominations. So those are my predictions for all of the Oscar categories minus the top 6 categories. Before I go into that, let me tell you first that I usually arrange my predictions for potential nominees in terms of likelihood, as I said earlier. At the top are the essential locks. Sometimes there aren't any essential locks in a particular category. Usually there's only one. Sometimes there would be more than one. And then after that, you'd have the most likely to be nominated. After that, the likely to be nominated. And then maybe, so these are the ones that have a pretty good chance, but we're not really banking on it with utmost confidence. And then after the maybe are the possible. Now, the possible would include usually the top 4 or the number 4, the number 5, and then onward. The other distinct possibilities. Now, having said that, let's go to the top 6 categories and let's begin with the supporting acting categories, which are probably the most exciting this year because there's a lot more flexibility here compared to the leading acting categories. Let's begin with supporting actress. Among all the contenders, I believe that there's only one virtual or essential lock, and that's Olivia Colman from The Father. Rave reviews ever since it debuted in Sundance. Of course, most of the attention has been on Anthony Hopkins, but Olivia Colman has had her fair share of praises, and it's been a two-hander, even as Anthony Hopkins was giving what many people claim to be his best performance in a long, long time, certainly deserving of a Best Actor nomination. Olivia Colman was slowly building momentum also. Okay, the momentum or the buzz on a nomination for her wasn't as early and as loud as that for Anthony Hopkins, but everyone was clear on the film being a two-parter, two-hander. I mean, between Hopkins and Colman. And I haven't watched the movie. This is one of the handful of Oscar contenders that I haven't seen. But a lot of people who have seen it say that her performance really packs an emotional punch. And so, we don't really expect much less than the best from Olivia Colman, a former Oscar winner. And probably her being a very recent Oscar winner is the only thing that's preventing her from really getting all the way to the top. Aside from that, the fact that it's a smaller film than a lot of the other contenders, although it is a very critically acclaimed film. So, I think she is the likeliest to get nominated. I'm not saying that she's the likeliest to win. In fact, if she does get nominated, she probably doesn't rank very high in terms of likelihood of winning, if only because she has won very recently. Now, next to her at number 2, and this one I rank at most likely. She is most likely to be nominated, but a far cry from being a lock, especially considering her history in the Oscars. We're talking about Glenn Close from Hillbilly Elegy. Yes, she has gotten nominated a lot of times. She has never won, and that's known by everyone, especially when she got beaten by Olivia Colman, the aforementioned Olivia Colman, for Best Actress. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people were expecting that Glenn Close would finally win for The Wife, but it wasn't a big enough movie. This is a big movie, or could have been, but it's not critically acclaimed. A lot of people hate it. The performance is not even universally acclaimed. A lot of people think it's hammy, although it's probably considered to be the best thing about Hillbilly Elegy. A lot of people seem to think that she's not a likely nominee. I disagree with that. It's still Glenn Close we're talking about here, and she has gotten much of the precursor support that she needs. However, it's not a slam dunk because, again, the film is not very well received. So I'm putting it still at most likely. Is she likely to win? If she gets nominated, I think she actually has a better chance of winning than Olivia Colman, to be honest. But we're talking about likelihood of nomination here and not likelihood of win. Now at likely, and at number 3, likely to be nominated is Amanda Seyfried from Mank. Yes, she has missed out on key precursor nominations, but that doesn't mean that she will not get nominated. There have been a lot. I mean, Regina King, for example, barely made an impression or barely had a presence in the precursors leading to the Oscars before finally winning the Oscars for If Beale Street Could Talk. And it's a matter of being a beloved celebrity in the right circles and turning in an amazing performance, which is what Regina King did a few years ago. Amanda Seyfried, we can say, had a knockout performance in Mank. She's not, of course, as celebrated as Regina King in the entertainment industry. So I guess that's what she has going against her. And the fact that Mank, while predicted to be, including by myself, the top nomination getter in terms of number of nominations, it's not as, not as popular and talked about as it used to be, although it has been getting a lot of precursor support. So I would still say that Amanda Seyfried is likely to be nominated. And in fact, if she does get nominated, she is probably one of the likeliest to win. And the Oscars love young ingenue actresses, especially in this category. So she's likely in. At number 4, and as much as I'd like to say that she's a likely nominee, and all of the precursors seem to be pointing at that, the fact that most of the precursors, if not Maria Bakalova, have given this to her, the award for Best Supporting Actress. And then she got key nominations from the Globes, from the Screen Actors Guild, and from BAFTA. And this is very rare because she is an Asian performer. I'm talking, of course, about Yoo Jung-yoon from Minari, a beloved performance. I love the performance. For me, it's the best supporting actress performance of the year. And so I would, if only I had the power to manifest wish into reality, I'd say that she's a very, very likely nominee and a very, very likely winner. But the Oscars have had a historic prejudice against nominating Asian performers. And this was very evident with Parasite last year. Won an ensemble award from SAG and yet didn't get a single acting nomination. But Yoo Jung-yoon might be too big to ignore, and the film might also be too big and too beloved to ignore. So she's probably in, but unfortunately, I'm not 100% confident. So I'm putting her at maybe instead of even likely. But if she does get nominated, I think she'd even threaten Amanda Seyfried or Glenn Close to win. That's how beloved she probably is, although I wish that gave me more confidence with regard to her nomination, overcoming the biases of the Academy voters. And finally, at number 5, the last slot for the list of nominees, is a possibility, Maria Bakalova from Borat's subsequent movie film. As I said earlier, if the precursor awards weren't going to Yoo Jung-yoon, they were going to Maria Bakalova. Personally, I do admire the performance. It's not one of my top 5 supporting actress performances of the year. And there are several performances that I would prefer that would get in to the top 5. But I wouldn't begrudge her a nomination. And given her precursor performance, I think I think it's entirely possible that she would get in. It's just that out of the 5, I think she's the one with the least likelihood of getting nominated. A lot of people would disagree with me. A lot of people put her nearer to the top in terms of likelihood. But that's my feeling. That's my feeling. And in terms of who could take her place, Helena Zengel from News of the World is certainly a threat, and I'm putting her at number 6. I'm probably overestimating her chances, but remember that she got several precursor nominations from key groups, and so there is affection for her, although the film itself is not as loved as it should be, in my opinion, because it's one of my favorite films of 2020, and it does have passionate supporters, I suppose. But as to how much that will translate into a nomination for Helena Zengel, that's quite uncertain. Now, there's someone who has been sneaking up in the predictions among many people, primarily because she won the Golden Globe unexpectedly, very unexpectedly. And this is Jodie Foster from The Mauritanian. So I'm putting her at number 7. In hindsight, maybe I should have put her at number 6. It's entirely possible that she will overtake one of the top 5, given that Jodie Foster is certainly well respected in Hollywood, and she has had that precursor win just at the right moment, because that was, I believe, when she won the Golden Globe. That was the voting period for the Oscars had either begun or was about to begin, and so that was going to be fresh in the minds of the Oscar voters. Now, of course, it's a matter of whether the Oscar voters have been able to watch The Mauritanian in the first place. But then sometimes they might just tick off a name that they're familiar with, and Jodie Foster is definitely more popular among Academy voters than, say, Maria Bakalova, or definitely more than Helena Zengel. So I wouldn't be surprised if she got in instead of Bakalova or Zengel. At number 8, I'm writing in Dominic Fishback from Judas and the Black Messiah, a film that I did not absolutely love, but I did love the performance of Fishback, as did many other people. So I, as well as many other viewers, would want her to get nominated. And I do think she has a chance, especially because she got that BAFTA nomination. So there is support. Although BAFTA's voting was quite different this year, and so it's not as reliable. As you may recall, there were a lot of names among the BAFTA nominees that sort of perplexed people because either they are not eligible in the Oscars or they were barely seen outside of the UK. But the BAFTA nominating committees introduced new rules to introduce more diversity or ensure more diversity, and that's probably why Dominic Fishback got in, but she definitely would deserve a nomination. I mean, personally, she deserves a nomination more than Maria Bakalova or Helena Zengel, but then that's my opinion. Let's see if enough Academy voters share that opinion as well. At number 9, I put in Saoirse Ronan for Ammonite, not completely writing her off, although the film has almost completely faded from conversation. And at number 10, Ellen Burstyn from Pieces of a Woman, who is still in the conversation, even if, just like Ammonite, the film has also faded from the conversation, and you will see that with my prediction later for Best Actress. But Ellen Burstyn is a legend, so her name could carry her all the way to a nomination still. Now let's go to the Best Supporting Actor category, which is probably the more exciting one between the two supporting acting categories. This one is the one with a lot more wiggle room, I suppose, and that's why I'm predicting someone in the 5th slot that not a lot of people are predicted. I just learned after making this prediction, these predictions, that some people at Gold Derby like Joyce Eng have also started predicting him, and I wish that would become true because he was excellent in this movie. But I'm preempting it. Before I get to that, let me talk first about the number 1. I'm not putting him at essential lock. I don't think anyone here is an essential lock, but he is a most likely nominee. And of course, we're talking about the current frontrunner, Daniel Kaluuya from Judas and the Black Messiah. Outstanding performance, definitely, but there's a lot of whispering here and there that it should be a lead performance, and so it's what a lot of people tend to call category fraud. Nathaniel Rogers from the Film Experience is one of the people who really cries foul over this, and to a certain extent, I do agree. This one, in my opinion, is a fine line. Is in a fine line. Yes, a lot of people would disagree with me. I do see why some people consider it to be a supporting performance, and why the precursors have agreed wholeheartedly, seemingly. For me, yes, it is more of a leading performance, but I do understand why it's being considered a supporting performance. So I'm not as angry as Nathaniel is or some other people are. And given that, I think the category fraud would be carried out this year. Fortunately or unfortunately, depends on who you're talking to. And he is the likeliest nominee, certainly. And if he does get nominated, he is the likeliest to win also. At numbers 2 and 3, I'm putting them. I'm giving them a likely, putting them in the likely category. And these are Sacha Baron Cohen from The Trial of the Chicago 7, and at number 3, Leslie Odom Jr. from One Night in Miami. Now, Sacha Baron Cohen, I believe, has a pretty good chance actually of winning this category, especially because Borat's subsequent movie film seems to have passionate supporters. It's getting a lot of notices where you wouldn't necessarily expect it, like a nomination from the Writers Guild of America, for instance, for adapted screenplay. And Sacha Baron Cohen has done his due, and he's a pretty good character actor, especially in this film, standing out among the ensemble, which is not an easy thing to do. And that having 2 major films in the same year could probably help him. But still, in terms of likelihood of nomination, I'd put him below Daniel Kaluuya. And then at number 3, I'm placing Leslie Odom Jr., who, yes, is the standout in One Night in Miami because his co-star was put in the leading actor category when in fact he should be here, or Leslie Odom should be in the leading actor category. It's another questionable thing in terms of the whole category fraud thing, but he has a pretty good role, definitely, and he may be a double nominee come Oscar nomination announcement because of his song for One Night in Miami. And so he's a likely nominee. And certainly, well, for me at least, certainly he has a better chance of who I put at number 4, a maybe, who is Chadwick Boseman from The Five Bloods. A lot of people are probably predicting him to be a likelier nominee than I do, because of the passion that's that Hollywood feels, and the empathy or sympathy that Hollywood feels. But I'm not sure that it will propel him in this category as much as it will propel him in the Best Actor category, especially because The Five Bloods hasn't been getting a lot of precursor attention. But still, it might be too big to ignore, and the Academy might be swept by all of these emotions and would compel them to nominate him twice in the same year. So yeah, he's still in my top 5. And then rounding off my top 5, and this is what I was teasing a while ago. Not a lot of people are predicting this right now. That might change in the next 2 days. Some people in Gold Derby, like again Joyce Eng, have shifted to including him in their list of 5. I'm putting in Alan S. Kim from Minari. Everyone who has watched Minari has, I suppose, fallen in love with this kid because he's so natural and so adorable. And depending on how many people saw his Critics' Choice Award acceptance speech, that might make an impact because he was so unbelievably cute and adorable when he broke down in tears and even pinched his cheek during his acceptance speech. If enough people among the voters saw that, he's probably a likelier nominee. But one of the other things that's giving me confidence to predict him is the fact that he got a nomination from the BAFTA. It's a bit confusing because BAFTA didn't even put Minari in the short list for Best Picture or Best Film. But then Yoo Jung-yeon got in, Alan S. Kim got in, so there is support for that film, at least for the acting. And again, that's quite encouraging, especially for an Asian cast. So yes, I am predicting Alan S. Kim to be in the top 5, and that would be an amazing nomination, even though it's not very likely, and that's why it's only a possible for me, because Academy voters tend to nominate actors of this age only in the actress or supporting actress categories and not in the male equivalent categories for some reason. But that is something that we've seen, and he'd be the next youngest nominee after Kovenzani Wallis from Beasts of the Southern Wild, which has been quite a few years ago. So it would be a welcome development to have someone so young getting nominated again for an acting Oscar. At number 6, I'm putting in Paul Rassi from Sound of Metal. Great performance. A lot of people are supporting it, but it hasn't been getting a lot of precursor support. Thankfully, the BAFTA put it back in the conversation. It's still a possibility. I believe that if Alan Kim doesn't get in, Paul Rassi will get in. I'm pained to say that at number 7, I'm putting in Jared Leto for The Little Things. It's probably unfair for me to say that because I honestly have not seen the film, but a lot of people are saying it's a bad film and it's not even that great a performance. Of course, I will reserve full judgment until I see the film for myself. But based on what I have seen, which is a lot, there are a lot more actors that are less known that should be getting buzz. So I'm not necessarily happy about Jared Leto getting all of these precursors from the Globes and even from SAG, which means he is really seriously thick in the conversation. And in fact, a lot of people are probably predicting him to be in the top 5, but I'm not willing to go that far. So I'm just gonna put him at number 7, bearing in mind that he is a possible contender, or he is a contender, a viable one for that matter. At number 8, I'm putting in my personal MVP from the Trial of the Chicago 7, that's Mark Rylance. I believe he turned in the best performance in that film. For a while, he was really heavily buzzed and he was in the top 5 for a lot of predictors. But then he fell off after One Night in Miami came out and after Judas and the Black Messiah came out. Now Alan S. Kim has been gaining a lot of buzz. Paul Rassi has always had buzz. So Mark Rylance has fallen off, and that's sad. But yeah, I'm still putting him in my top 10. At number 9, I have David Strathairn from Nomadland. It's a very small role, but it's quite pivotal and important, and it's David Strathairn we're talking about here, well-respected actor who has had an Oscar nomination. So, it's not impossible. I struggled to come up with someone for the number 10 slot. I could have put in someone from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom or from The Trial of the Chicago 7 Against, like Yayo Abdul Mateen or Eddie Redmayne even. But I decided to go for Clark Peters from The Five Bloods because he got a BAFTA nomination, and it was quite a memorable performance. Now, let's go to the leading actor category, starting with Best Actress. Now, in terms of locks, there's probably just one. Some people would say that Carey Mulligan is a lock, Viola Davis is a lock. For me, the only essential lock is Frances McDormand from Nomadland. Great film, beloved film. Everyone's expecting it to win the Oscar for Best Picture. Well, I don't know if that's true, if it's everyone, but most people are. And Frances McDormand turns in another amazing performance. If she hadn't won 2 years ago, she'd probably be the likeliest to win. But in terms of likelihood of nomination, she's almost a sure bet. Okay, so yeah, she's an essential lock. Most likely to be nominated is my number 2, Viola Davis from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I'm just not as confident that she's a lock. There is a chance that she might get bumped out, although that's a very, very small chance. So it's still a most likely nomination. And she was amazing in that film. And for representation, of course, she'd get in. And she's a threat to win, definitely. At number 3, and a likely nominee, and yes, I wish I were more confident about her getting nominated, but she has missed out on certain precursors like BAFTA from her home turf. She's British, and so we expected her to get nominated, but she didn't. And so that's, throwing a wrench in the whole thing. Some people might be overestimating her chances. A lot of people are even saying that she would win. I'm not so sure about that. I'm not even so sure about the nomination. That's why for me, she's just unlikely. Yeah, but of course, Carey Mulligan was great in Promising Young Woman. It was an amazing role in a really good film. So yeah, she's likely in the top 5. Maybe Andra Day will get nominated for her performance in the United States versus Billie Holiday, especially after that Golden Globe win, which was a shocker of sorts. It's a shocker if you haven't seen it, but if you've seen the film, it shouldn't be. I saw the film after she won. I was shocked when she won, but after watching it, I was like, yes, she should have won. I mean, I prefer Frances McDormand, but again, she has won before. Andra Day is this ingenue who turns in an amazing performance in the United States versus Billie Holiday, which is a bad film, very messy. I wish it were better. If it were better, I'd be more sure about her getting nominated. But it isn't a very good film, and so we're not sure. And she didn't get a lot of other precursor nominations like from BAFTA or SAG. She missed out on those. So she's a maybe, but I'm banking on it. At number 5, now this one is the really shaky slot. There are so many potential contenders here. I'd say that my numbers 5 to 9 are, any of them could really get into this slot. But right now, I'm putting in not Vanessa Kirby, but Sophia Loren from The Life Ahead. Legendary status. Is it enough to get her into the nominee circle, especially after being snubbed by all of the major precursors? I think so. The Academy voters are a whole different creature with a different type of culture and tradition. So she could definitely get in. She's well beloved by the Academy, having won an Oscar for Best Actress for 2 women and having had an honorary Oscar. She hasn't had a nomination since, so the voters might want to welcome her back. And she was great in a film that was serviceable. It wasn't very memorable, but it was a very memorable performance. And it's a type of role that usually gets a nomination, despite being in the foreign language. Of course, a lot more people are predicting that Vanessa Kirby would get in for Pieces of a Woman because she won in Venice and she's been making a lot of buzz and she's been getting precursor nominations. But it's not a well-loved film. It's not a film that's on everyone's lips and in everyone's minds. So it could have just as easily slipped away from the minds of voters, even if they see her name. If they see her name alongside Sophia Loren, they might be more inclined to vote Sophia Loren in. So that's why I'm very, very, very slightly more confident in a Sophia Loren nomination than a Vanessa Kirby one. And so Vanessa Kirby for me is at number 6. But of course, I won't be surprised if she gets in. And she would deserve to get in. I actually like her performance more than I did Sophia Loren's. At number 7, I'm putting in Amy Adams from Hillbilly Elegy. We cannot completely discount her, especially because she got the SAG nomination, and we all know how much the Oscars love Amy Adams, even though they snubbed her for Arrival, which is one of her best performances ever, and I'm still pissed about that. But yeah, they do love her, and so she could definitely get in. Just thinking about it now, she should probably be my number 6, not my number 7. But yeah, at least she's still there. I do know that she's one of the primary contenders for the 5th contentious slot. So is my number 8, who's a more recent surge, and that's Rosamund Pike from I Care a Lot. She won a Golden Globe in the comedy musical category, which doesn't really matter all the time, especially when most of the major buzz contenders are in the drama category. It is a great performance in a film that I personally did not like. In fact, I didn't finish it because it was too much for me. The nastiness of her character was too much for me. Bordering on unbelievable, not just her performance but the plot itself. But a lot of people seem to care a lot about it. And it's on Netflix, so it's readily accessible. And yeah, that win from the Golden Globe definitely gave her a lot of buzz. I wouldn't be upset if she got nominated, and wouldn't necessarily be surprised, but I'm not confident that she will be, despite that Golden Globe win. And given my personal opinion, I'd like to think that it's a polarizing film and not universally loved. At number 9, I'm putting in another serious contender who is nevertheless not as serious a contender as the ones who came before her in my list, and that's Michelle Pfeiffer from The French Exit. I have not seen this movie, again, one of the few that I haven't seen, but I'm sure she knocks it out of the park, as the reviewers, as the critics say she does, and it's a prime role. And it's Michelle Pfeiffer we're talking about here, who is more overdue than most of the other actresses here, Glenn Close included. That's my personal opinion. Michelle Pfeiffer is more overdue. At least Glenn Close has been getting nominations recently, within the last few years. Michelle Pfeiffer hasn't. So I don't know whether or not I wish she would get in because I haven't seen the movie, but it would be a pleasant surprise because I do love Michelle Pfeiffer. And at number 10, this one would surprise a lot of people because there are other viable contenders. I'm putting in Yeri Han from Minari. I love the performance. I wish it were getting more buzz because she certainly deserves it. She's the heart of, aside from Alan Kim, she's a central beating heart of the film. And she turns in a great performance, a very touching, sensitive performance. It's the Asian thing. If she weren't Asian, she'd be higher up in the list, actually. Hollywood is probably feeling generous that they're giving so much attention to Yoo Jung-yeon and Steven Yeun, and to a certain extent Alan Kim. Sadly, they're leaving behind Yeri Han in the conversation when she should be up there. That's my no guts, no glory prediction. And that's one that I would absolutely love to see. Yeri Han getting nominated. Crossing my fingers. Best Actor category is probably more locked up, except for the 5th slot. Again, which is very contentious. I'm putting in 2 for Essential Luck. Unlike in the other categories, I have 2 here. And those are Chadwick Boseman, definitely for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and he is the likeliest to win. I agree with prognosticators who say that. Brilliant performance in a really good film. And so what a way to go, right? And so he would be an ultimately deserving winner. Although, my caveat here is, and I'm ashamed of this, I have not seen The Father. And I think I mentioned that a while ago with Olivia Colman. And everyone has been saying that Anthony Hopkins' performance is tour de force. So I wish I'd see it soon, so that I can really say that Chadwick Boseman deserves the Oscar win. I might change my mind after watching Anthony Hopkins. But they're the top 2. It's going to be between them, I believe. Likely nominee is Riz Ahmed at number 3 for Sound of Metal. Ever since it started getting buzzed early last year, I really started thinking, he's a viable contender. Especially because the Academy wants to be diverse. Riz Ahmed would certainly add to the diversity of the Oscars, and he would deserve it. I watched the film, and it's a great performance. So it's not surprising that he's getting a lot of precursor support and buzz. At number 4, and a maybe, is Gary Oldman from Mank. I love the performance, and in fact, it's one of my favorite actor performances of the year. But I do understand why it's not as high up in a lot of prognosticators' lists. It's not as exciting compared to the other ones. Or at least, the performance itself is, I believe, but the idea of him getting nominated itself is not it's not a very exciting prospect, even if he would deserve it. Because he's won just recently, and he's been, very, very well represented in the Academy, whereas many of these potential nominees, Anthony Hopkins accepted, of course, has never had a nomination. So it's time for fresh faces, right? Still, we can't take away the fact that that Gary Oldman turned in an amazing performance in an amazing movie. Now, let's go to number 5. A lot of people are predicting Delroy Lindo, but I am predicting Steven Yeun from Minari. Actually, it's probably not that fair or correct or accurate to say that. If you go to Gold Derby, the majority seem to think that Steven Yeun will be getting in instead of Delroy Lindo, and I agree with them. The Minari love will sweep him toward the nomination, and the fact that he got a nomination from the Screen Actors Guild Awards is a big, big thing. Delroy Lindo has not had a major precursor nomination. He has missed out on a lot. And the Five Bloods is definitely not as well loved as Minari. So I'm giving Steven Yeun the edge, and I personally would prefer that Steven Yeun get nominated over Delroy Lindo. So there's a bit of my personal preference here also, speaking, aside from basing it on some other factors. So yes, at number 6 is Delroy Lindo from the Five Bloods. Great actor who really did a standout job in a good film. I didn't love the film, but I do appreciate it also. At number 7, I'm putting in Mads Mikkelsen from Another Round, just because people are really raving about it. Those who have seen it, and they've been raving about Mikkelsen's performance. We all know how great an actor Mads Mikkelsen is. So it wouldn't be 100% surprising if he got in, although he's not really that buzzed. I haven't seen Another Round. I'm planning to rectify that very soon. I'm almost sure that when I do get to watch it, I will hope that he gets in, or that he got in, because by the time I watch it, the nominations will have probably come out already. At number 8, I'm putting in Tom Hanks from News of the World. I wish I were able to rank him higher, because personally for me, he was very, very effective, as he always is, in that type of role. In the News of the World, which is my second best picture of the year, caveat again, I haven't seen all of the major contenders like The Father and Another Round, for instance. But I wish he were higher up in the predictions, because he certainly deserves it. Tom Hanks is such a warm person, such a well-loved person who is an amazing actor. So he deserves better. At number 9 is Tahar Rahim. I've ever since I heard of this movie, I immediately thought this is going to be a contender. But a lot of prognosticators did not seem to agree with me, because they were barely giving it any attention until it started performing well in precursors like in the BAFTAs and Golden Globes, both of which nominated Tahar Rahim. And he's always been a very good actor ever since he debuted. And so, well, it would be a shocker if he got nominated, and I don't think he will. But I will reserve my judgment for whether or not he deserves to be until I get to watch the movie. And finally, at number 10, I'm putting in Daniel Kaluuya from Judas and the Black Messiah, and that's probably my most shocking predicted nomination here. I'm putting him at number 10, so it's not really at all likely. But, it has happened before where the Academy voters said, no, you're not supposed to be in this category, you're supposed to be in this one. And as you all know, if you've been following the Oscars, that's what happened to Kate Winslet for The Reader. She campaigned, or her production campaigned for her in the supporting actress category, but she ultimately got into the leading actress category, and she won. And I think that same thing happened with Keisha Casilius for The Whale Rider. She was campaigning for supporting, she got nominated in the lead actress category. So, it's not impossible, right? It's not impossible, but it's highly, highly unlikely. For achievement in directing, I have only one essential lock, and that is obviously Chloe Zhao for Nomadland. I love the movie. It's my favorite movie of the year, and it was so well directed, so simply and delicately directed. Only Chloe Zhao has the sensitivity and sensibility to be able to direct a film in such a quiet but strong manner, um, especially with virtually unknown actors aside from Strathern and McDormand. It's a quiet film, but it packs up an emotional punch, and it says so much about American society, but even society at large. And so I really loved it, and I really wish she would win, and everyone thinks she will. She's the essential lock for most people, and I don't think anyone comes close to threatening her. And it's going to be amazing how the Eternals, the upcoming MCU movie, is going to be, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's going to be the first MCU movie directed by an Oscar-winning director. And that's awesome, right? At numbers 2 and 3 are directors that I believe are most likely to get nominated. At number 2 is Lee Isaac Chung for Minari. I don't know how much of that high placement comes from me just loving the film. But there is a lot of confidence from a lot of people that he will get nominated. So I believe he is a most likely nominee, and he would certainly deserve it. But what probably surprises you is that I ranked him higher than David Fincher from Mank. I don't really have a logical explanation for that. I just feel it in my gut that Lee Isaac Chung has an even better chance than David Fincher of getting nominated. A likely nominee at number 4 is Aaron Sorkin for The Trial of the Chicago 7. He's a stronger writer than he is a director, but he's been getting precursor nominations, so he's probably in. He's likely in. And I do like the film also, so I won't begrudge it. Now, a possible nominee, and as most prognosticators would agree, it's really a fight between two women, that fifth slot. A lot more people are giving Emerald Fennell for Promising Young Woman the edge. I'm giving Regina King the edge for One Night in Miami. Why? She's a beloved actress. She has proven before that she doesn't get precursors, but she can still damn win an Oscar. That's what she did for If Beale Street Could Talk, and I think she could do the same. Especially because Academy voters are much more conscious about nominating diverse nominees. And so, she's probably in. Emerald Fennell doesn't nearly have as much clout in the Academy as Regina King does. A lot of people tend to forget that, but that's an important factor to consider, and both are well-loved films anyway. So yes, I'm putting Regina King at number 5. And at number 6, I'm putting in Emerald Fennell for Promising Young Woman. Although it's been Fennell who has been getting a lot of precursor buzz and nominations, including from the DGA, which is huge, of course. At number 7, I'm putting in Paul Greengrass for News of the World. I wish I could rank him higher. For number 8, I'm putting in Thomas Winterberg from Another Round. Who knows? Recently, the Academy has been giving a lot more nominations to foreign directors, to non-American directors. And so it's certainly a possibility, especially because the film is loved. At number 9 is Florian Zeller for The Father. And finally at number 10, I'm putting in Kelly Reichardt for First Cow. I just want to put her name in there. She would deserve it. She would deserve a nomination. Although I'm not the biggest fan of her movies, I loved First Cow. And finally, let's talk about the biggest category of the night, which is Best Picture. For Essential Luck, Nomadland, right? Is there any doubt that it will get nominated? It's probably most likely going to win, even because of all the love that it's been getting from the very start, which is so well deserved. Most likely nominees are Mank and Minari. So Mank is not nearly as loved as Nomadland, but it will likely get the most nominations. I'm predicting 12 nominations for it. The only one that I'm not predicting that other people are is Makeup and Hairstyling, but it will probably get that also. So that's a total of 13, which is, as anyone who has been following the Oscars would know, the second biggest number of nominations after 14. And then at number 3, of course, Minari, which practically everyone who's seen it loves. And I wouldn't be surprised if it threatens to win, and I wouldn't feel very bad about it. But Nomadland has a hold on that. At least Minari will get nominated. It's very, very likely. Now, likely nominees so I'm putting them from numbers 4 to 7. I have 4: The Trial of the Chicago 7, Promising Young Woman, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and One Night in Miami. There are pros and cons. Definitely greater pros than cons, and so there's still likely nominees, and I will be shocked if one of them doesn't get nominated. At number 8, a maybe, is The Father. Again, I haven't seen it, So I can't really judge as to whether that's a wrong placement or a right one or just a right one. But it's certainly not as buzzed as the other ones, especially because it hasn't come out wide yet. It's been quite silent right now. It has had a very small release, so that's why even a lot of prognosticators are wondering what the game is all about and whether or not it's going to get enough attention, or I should say, if it has gotten enough attention from the Academy voters. Possible nominees are at number 9, Use of the World. Again, I love this film, so I wish it were higher, but it's not been getting a lot of buzz or precursor nominations. And at number 10, Judas and the Black Messiah, which I don't feel very warmly toward. I do appreciate the movie and its message, but a lot of Academy voters would probably like it enough. So if they do have 10 nominees, it will get in. But historically, ever since the sliding scale, they've had normally 8 or 9 nominees. So it would probably be just down to The Father in Use of the World, and Judas will get shut out. After Judas and the Black Messiah, my other possibilities are Soul, which I'm probably overestimating, Sound of Metal, which I'm probably underestimating, The Five Bloods, The Mauritanian, and finally Another Round, which would probably surprise a lot of you. Some of you might put in there Borat instead of that, but again, the Academy has become more friendly to foreign releases or non-American releases in recent years, and that's the one that is likely to win the International Feature Film category this year. So why not, right? So those are my predicted nominees. Do you agree? Do you strongly disagree? Please give your comments below. It's always a fun game. For me, I always love predicting nominations more than predicting winners because it's always more exciting. By the time the nominees have been determined, there's a lot less wiggle room, and we're practically sure of who will win already, except for the occasional shocker, like Olivia Colman winning against Glenn Close. And Parasite, although I did predict Parasite last year, it was still surprising that it won over 1917, the favored winner. I'm hoping for shocks on Oscar nomination morning or night in the Philippines. I'm really hoping for that shockaroo of Alan Kim getting in. Not necessarily hoping for Sophia Loren to get in over Vanessa Kirby because I like Kirby's performance more. But of course, I'd like my nominations to be correct. So, keeping my fingers crossed. If you enjoyed that video and you would like to see more about the Oscars, and I will be covering the Oscars after the nominations come out and toward the eventual ceremony, or you'd like to see more videos about popular culture and science and the intersections between them, don't forget to subscribe to PopScicle so that you may be alerted to new content in the future. See you again next time.